We live in an age where some of human knowledge is accessible with a simple flick of the wrist, yet we have never felt more overwhelmed. Every day, we are bombarded with articles, podcasts, videos, and social media updates that promise to improve our lives, yet most of it vanishes from our minds the moment we consume it. We find ourselves constantly searching for that one great idea we saw last week, struggling to remember the details of a project, or feeling the paralyzing weight of a to-do list that never seems to shrink. This is the information overload crisis, and it is a primary barrier to our creativity and productivity. The problem isn't that we aren't smart enough or hardworking enough. It's that we are trying to use our biological brains for something they weren't designed to do: storage. Our minds are for having ideas, not for holding them. To navigate the modern world, we need a digital companion, a second brain, that can act as a tireless, reliable repository for our best thoughts and discoveries. This script will show you how to build that system, transforming you from a passive consumer into a prolific creator. Imagine having a personal assistant who never sleeps, never forgets, and can instantly retrieve any piece of information you've ever found valuable. That is the essence of a second brain. It is more than just a note-taking app. It is a philosophy of personal knowledge management. By offloading the burden of remembering to a digital system, we free up our biological brains to do what they do best: imagine, synthesize, and create. A second brain allows you to capture the sparks of inspiration as they happen, ensuring that your best ideas are never lost in the fog of daily life. It creates a virtuous cycle where every piece of information you save becomes a building block for future projects. Instead of starting every task from a blank page, you start with a rich library of insights you've already curated. This shift in perspective turns information from a source of stress into a source of power, giving you the confidence to tackle complex challenges with ease. The first pillar of building a second brain is the capture phase. Most people fail at knowledge management because they try to save everything, leading to a digital junk drawer that is impossible to navigate. The secret to effective capture is to be a discerning curator. You shouldn't ask, "Is this interesting?" because in the digital age, everything is interesting. Instead, ask, "Does this resonate with me?" And "Is this useful for a project I'm currently working on?" Capture is about identifying the signals amidst the noise. You want to save only the best parts, the core insights, the surprising statistics, or the beautiful quotes that make you think. By using digital tools to quickly clip and store these fragments, you create a stream of high-quality inputs that will fuel your creativity. Remember, the goal of capture is not to build an encyclopedia, but to create a private collection of assets that are personally meaningful to you. Once you have captured valuable information, the next challenge is organization. Traditional systems organize information by source or category, such as marketing, health, or notes. However, this creates silos that are difficult to use when you are actually working on something. A second brain uses a projects in an approach called PARA: projects, areas, resources, and archives. Projects are active efforts with a deadline, like launch website. Areas are ongoing responsibilities, like finances or health. Resources are topics of interest, like graphic design or gardening. Archives are completed or inactive items. By organizing for action rather than for topic, you ensure that the right information is always at your fingertips when you need it most. This system is dynamic and flexible, moving items between categories as your priorities change. It transforms your notes from a static library into a functional toolkit that supports your daily work. The third phase, Distill, is where the real value of your second brain begins to emerge. Capturing 1,000 words is easy, but finding the one sentence that matters is the work of a genius. Distilling is the process of summarizing your notes so that your future self can understand them in seconds. The most effective technique for this is progressive summarization. You start by saving a note, then later, you bold the most important sentences. On a third pass, you highlight the very best parts of those bolded sentences. Finally, you write a brief executive summary at the top. This layering of context allows you to quickly scan your notes and grasp the core message without having to reread the entire document. It ensures that your second brain remains high yield and low friction, preventing it from becoming a burden you have to manage. You are distilling the essence of your learning into a form that is ready for immediate application. The final and most important phase of the methodology is express. Information is useless if it stays locked inside your second brain. Its true purpose is to be shared, used, and turned into something new. This is the act of creation. Whether you are writing a report, designing a product, or giving a presentation, you draw upon the intermediate packets you've built during the previous phases. Instead of sitting down to a daunting, massive task, you assemble your final product from the distilled insights, quotes, and research you've already collected. This makes the creative process feel less like a struggle and more like a game of Lego. You are no longer starting a project. You are finishing one that you've been building in small pieces over time. Expression is the ultimate goal of knowledge management, transforming your digital notes into tangible value for the world. One of the most transformative concepts in the second brain philosophy is the idea of intermediate packets. Most of us view our work as big, monolithic blocks, the final report, or the complete campaign. This makes starting new projects incredibly intimidating. Intermediate packets are the smaller, modular components of your work. A distilled book summary, a set of interview notes, or a brainstorm list of ideas. By focusing on creating these small, high-quality units, you make constant progress even when you don't have hours of deep focus time. These packets are highly portable. An insight you capture for a project last year might be the perfect solution for a problem you're facing today. A second brain acts as a warehouse of these packets, allowing you to remix and reuse your previous work endlessly. This compounds your productivity, as every hour you spend today makes every hour you spend in the future more effective. The greatest enemy of a second brain is perfectionism. Many people get stuck trying to find the perfect app or the perfect folder structure, and as a result, they never actually start capturing ideas. You must embrace a good enough mindset. Your second brain is a living system that will evolve with you. It doesn't need to be tidy to be useful. In fact, a bit of messiness is often a sign of a high-functioning system, as it shows you're focusing on doing the work rather than organizing the work. Don't worry about finishing your second brain. It is a lifelong project. The key is to start small. Capture one interesting quote today. Organize one project tomorrow. Over time, these small actions will compound into a massive competitive advantage. Trust the process. Let go of the need for order and focus on the joy of discovery and creation. Building a second brain is not just about productivity. It is about reclaiming your mental space and your peace of mind. When you know that your best ideas are safe and searchable, the background noise of anxiety begins to fade. You no longer have to worry about forgetting that great tip or losing that important document. You are free to be fully present in the moment, knowing that your digital partner has your back. As technology continues to evolve, the ability to manage knowledge will become the single most important skill of the 21st century. By starting today, you are future-proofing your career and your creativity. You are building a system that will grow with you, learning from your experiences and magnifying your impact. This is a journey of becoming a modern knowledge worker, someone who turns information into wisdom and wisdom into action. The modern era is defined not by a scarcity of information, but by a crushing abundance of it. Every morning, we wake up to a digital landscape that is already overflowing with data, breaking news, instructional videos, thought-provoking articles, and the endless stream of social media. We are the first generation of humans to carry the entirety of human knowledge in our pockets, yet we have never felt more mentally exhausted or creatively stifled. This is a paradox of the information age. We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. We consume at a rate that our biological brains were never designed to handle, leading to a state of chronic cognitive overload where great ideas are lost as quickly as they are found. The problem lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of the human mind's primary function. For centuries, we have treated our brains as storage vaults, vessels intended to hold facts, figures, and experiences until they are needed. But our biological brains are actually quite poor at long-term storage. They are volatile, prone to forgetting, and heavily influenced by our current emotional state. What our brains are extraordinary at is synthesis, imagination, and problem-solving. As productivity expert David Allen famously noted, your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. When we force our brains to act as filing cabinets, we rob them of the energy they need to innovate. This is why you need a second brain. A second brain is a digital system, a trusted companion outside of your physical body. That takes on the burden of remembering so that your primary brain can focus on thinking. It is a systematic approach to personal knowledge management that ensures your best insights, your most valuable research, and your fleeting moments of inspiration are captured, organized, and ready for use. It transforms you from a passive consumer of content into an active curator of knowledge. Imagine the relief of never having to worry about losing an idea again. Imagine sitting down to start a new project, whether it's writing a book, launching a business, or planning a vacation, and finding that 80% of the work is already done because you've been capturing and distilling relevant pieces of information for months. This is the power of a second brain. It allows you to build a compound interest of knowledge, where every book you read, in every conversation, you have adds to a permanent library of assets that grows more valuable over time. Building the system is not about being tech-savvy or finding the perfect app. It is about adopting a new way of interacting with the digital world. It is about moving from a just-in-case learning model, where we hoard information we might never use, to a just-in-time model, where we capture information specifically to support our goals and projects. This introduction marks the beginning of your journey toward digital liberation. By the end of this script, you will have a methodology to organize your life and ideas in a way that feels natural, effortless, and most importantly, deeply creative. The transition to using a second brain requires a shift in how we perceive our digital footprint. Currently, most people treat their digital files, emails, and notes as a messy attic, a place where things go to be forgotten. A second brain turns that attic into a high-functioning laboratory. It is a dynamic environment where ideas are not just stored, but are actively combined and remixed to create something new. This is the secret of the world's most prolific creators. They don't have better ideas than you. They simply have a better system for managing the ideas they already have. Throughout this guide, we'll explore the code methodology: capture, organize, distill, and express. These 4 steps form the backbone of a high-performance second brain. We will also dive into the PARA method, a revolutionary way to organize your digital life based on actionability rather than rigid categories. We will learn how to bypass the blank page syndrome forever and how to turn information overload into a competitive advantage. You are no longer a victim of the information age. You are about to become a master of it. By offloading the mechanical task of remembering to your digital tools, you are reclaiming your mental space. You are opening the door to a life of more focus, less stress, and infinite creative potential. Let us begin the process of building your second brain, the ultimate tool for organizing your life and magnifying your impact on the world. The first great leap in building a second brain is not a technical one, but a psychological one. We must fundamentally redefine our relationship with our own biology. For centuries, the mark of an educated person was their ability to recall vast amount of information on command. The dates of battles, the names of poets, the intricacies of chemical formulas. We have inherited a culture that prizes internalized knowledge above all else. However, in an era where the collective knowledge of the human race is accessible in milliseconds, this traditional focus on memorization has become a profound strategic disadvantage. When you spend your mental energy trying to remember a project deadline or a quote from a book you read last summer, you are using the most sophisticated processing unit in the known universe as a simple hard drive. This is not just inefficient. It is a waste of your human potential. The personal knowledge management revolution is built on the realization that your brain is a processor, not a container. Think of your mind like a high-end computer with limited RAM. RAM is a working memory used for active tasks, solving a problem, writing a sentence, or having a deep conversation. If you fill that RAM with background processes, reminders to buy milk, a half-remembered statistic for a presentation, or an anxiety of forgotten task, the computer slows down, it freezes, it crashes. Building a second brain is the act of moving those background processes to an external solid-state drive, effectively clearing your biological RAM, so you can think with clarity and speed. By offloading the mechanical task of storage, you allow your first brain to return to its natural state, a state of flow, curiosity, and high-level synthesis. This chapter of our journey is about embracing digital outsourcing. We must learn to trust our digital tools as much as we trust our own eyes. Most of us live in a state of information anxiety, a low-level hum of stress caused by the fear of forgetting. We take notes in desperate places, scraps of paper, the backs of envelopes, or the Notes app on our phones. But because we lack a centralized system, we never truly trust that we can find what we need when we need it. This lack of trust means we keep trying to hold on to the information mentally, which keeps our stress levels high and our creativity low. A second brain is designed to be a circle of trust. When you capture an idea in your system, your brain should receive a signal that says, "It's safe. You can let go now." This releases the quiet mind, and it is the prerequisite for all great creative work. The second brain is not a static archive. It is a dynamic, living extension of your consciousness. It is a commonplace book for the 21st century. In the Renaissance, great thinkers like John Locke and Isaac Newton kept physical notebooks where they recorded every interesting thought, quote, or observation they encountered. They understood that genius is not the result of a single eureka moment, but the result of the slow, steady accumulation of ideas over time. A second brain takes this ancient practice and supercharges it with the power of digital search, tagging, and cross-linking. It allows you to build a private library of Lego bricks, pieces of knowledge that could be assembled and reassembled in infinite ways. You are no longer just learning. You are building a proprietary asset that will serve you for the rest of your life. As we dive into mechanics of the system, we must move away from the idea of organizing for the sake of organization. Most people approach digital filing like they are organizing a library for a stranger. They create complex hierarchies and rigid folders that are beautiful to look at but impossible to use. A second brain is organized for action. It is built around your current projects and your future goals. It doesn't matter if your system is messy as long as it is functional. The goal is to create a low-friction environment where capturing and retrieving information is as natural as breathing. We are building a system that works for you, tailored to your unique way of thinking and your specific professional needs. This is the foundation of a life lived with more intention, more productivity, and far less overwhelm. The true power of this system becomes apparent when you stop starting from scratch. Every new task usually begins with a heavy lifting of research and brainstorming. But when you have a second brain, you are always starting from a warm start. You search your system and find that you've already captured 3 articles on the topic, a distilled summary of a relevant book, and a brainstorm from 6 months ago. You are not starting the project. You are assembling it. This shifts your energy from the labor collection to the art of expression. It allows you to produce higher quality work in a fraction of the time. You are effectively sending yourself gifts from the past, ensuring that every hour you spent learning yesterday contributes to your success today. This is a compounding interest of knowledge, and it is the ultimate competitive advantage in the modern economy. Building a second brain is fundamentally about the liberation of the human spirit due to rigorous management of digital assets. In this expanded exploration of our first chapter, we must confront the collector's fallacy, the mistaken belief that the act of acquiring information is the same thing as the act of learning it. We have all been there, bookmarking dozens of articles we will never read, favoriting tweets we will never revisit, and saving PDFs into a digital abyss. This behavior is a symptom of our biological brain trying to hoard resources in an environment of perceived scarcity. But in the 21st century, information is not scarce. It is a flood. To survive, we must move from being hoarders to being architects. We must realize that the value of information is not in its possession, but in its actionability. The architecture of a second brain is designed to facilitate this transition from data to wisdom. When you offer a piece of information to your system, you're not just saving it, you're planting it. You are placing it in a fertile environment where it can interact with other ideas, grow over time, and eventually be harvested for a specific purpose. This requires a level of intentionality that most of us lack in our daily digital lives. We tend to treat our devices as consumption machines, places where we go to be entertained or distracted. A second brain reclaims a device as a production machine. It shifts the focus from what can I consume next to what can I create what I already have. This shift is the hallmark of the high-performance knowledge worker. To achieve this, we must master the art of strategic forgetting. Our brains are naturally designed to prune away information that doesn't seem immediately relevant. This is a survival mechanism that prevents us from being overwhelmed by the trivia of daily life. However, in our professional lives, trivia from 6 months ago, a specific client preference, a unique technical solution, or creative insight can often be the key to a current problem. A second brain allows you to forget these details consciously, knowing that they're indexed and searchable. This externalized memory acts as a safety net, catching the valuable fragments that your biological brain would otherwise discard. It allows you to maintain a beginner's mind, a state of openness and clarity, without losing the hard-won expertise of your past. This leads us to the concept of the extended mind. Philosophers and cognitive scientists have long argued that our minds do not stop at the boundaries of our skulls. When we use a calculator to solve a math problem or a map to navigate a city, those tools become part of our cognitive process. A second brain is the ultimate extension of the mind. It is a cognitive prosthetic that enhances our ability to think across time and space. It allows your past self to collaborate with your present self to benefit your future self. This temporal collaboration is what allows for the creation of truly massive, complex works. No one writes a masterpiece in a single sitting. They assemble from thousands of small interactions with their second brain over the course of years. The psychological relief that comes with this system cannot be overstated. Much of our modern anxiety is open-loop anxiety. The stress of knowing there is something we need to do, remember, or handle, but not having a clear place for it. When you have a second brain, every open loop has a destination. A brilliant idea for a business goes into the ideas resource. A crucial feedback note goes into the active project folder. A beautiful poem goes into your inspiration archive. By closing these loops, you stop the mental leaks that drain your energy. You create a state of mind like water, a term from martial arts and productivity that describes a mind that is perfectly responsive to present moment, neither overreacting nor underreacting, because it is not burdened by the past or worried about the future. Finally, we must understand that building a second brain is an act of self-care. In a world that is constantly trying to hijack our attention and sell us the next big thing, a second brain is a private sanctuary. It is a space where your values, your interests, and your unique perspective are the only things that matter. It is a defense against the algorithm, which tries to tell you what to think and what to care about. By curating your own knowledge, you are asserting your intellectual independence. You are building a world of your own making, populated by the ideas that resonate with you. This is the true meaning of organizing your life and ideas. It is about taking ownership of your mental landscape and ensuring that your digital life is a reflection of your highest aspirations. The second pillar of the building a second brain methodology is capture. In a world where we are constantly submerged in a sea of data, the instinct for many is to become a digital hoarder, saving every link, PDF, and tweet that passes through their feed. However, a second brain is not a landfill. It is a curated gallery. To build a system that actually serves you, you must move from passive consumption to active, discerning curation. Capturing is the act of identifying the signals amidst the noise, those rare fragments of information that have potential to change your thinking, solve a problem, or spark a new project. If you capture everything, you effectively capture nothing, because the cost of finding what you need becomes higher than the value of the information itself. The primary rule of the capture phase is the resonance test. When you encounter a piece of information, you shouldn't ask yourself if it is objectively important or if you might need it someday. Those are intellectual traps that lead to clutter. Instead, you must ask a much more visceral question. Does this resonate with me? Resonance is a physical sensation, a spark of excitement, a feeling of aha, or a sense that a missing piece of a puzzle has just clicked into place. This internal compass is far more reliable than any logical criteria. Your biological brain is excellent at recognizing patterns and relevance. The resonance test allows you to leverage that ancient instinct to filter the digital deluge. If it doesn't move you, don't save it. To capture effectively, you must also adopt a project-first mindset. One of the biggest mistakes in knowledge management is capturing information in a vacuum, hoping that it will be useful in some vague, undefined future. Instead, you should look at your current active projects. the things you are actually being paid to do, or the goals you are currently pursuing. When you find something that directly supports a project on your plate, the value of capturing it is immediate and clear. This just-in-time learning ensures that your second brain remains a high-octane engine of productivity, rather than a dusty archive of maybe ideas. You are looking for assets, tools that you can put to work today, not liabilities that you have to manage for tomorrow. The mechanics of capture involve choosing the right capture tools. In the modern ecosystem, this usually means a dedicated notes app, a web clipper, and perhaps a voice-to-text tool for when you are on the move. The key is to minimize friction. If it takes more than a few seconds to save an idea, you simply won't do it when you're busy. Your tool should be the path of least resistance. Whether it's a quick highlight in an ebook reader or a photo of a whiteboard after a meeting, the goal is to get the information out of your volatile biological memory and into your reliable digital system as quickly as possible. This externalization is the first step in reclaiming your mental bandwidth. However, capturing is not just about the what, but also the how. When you save a note, you must practice contextual capture. A raw link or a single sentence without context is often useless to your future self 3 months from now. You need to include a hook, a brief note on why you saved it, what project it relates to, or what specific ideas sparked in your mind. This is the difference between a dead note and a living asset. You're effectively sending a postcard to your future self, giving them the clues they need to reconstruct the original insight. This small investment time during the capture phase pays massive dividends when you're on the flow of a project and need to retrieve ideas instantly. Finally, we must distinguish between capture and consumption. Most of us spend our time consuming, reading, watching, listening, without ever stopping to capture. This leads to the illusion of learning, where we feel like we're getting smarter because we are processing information, but because we haven't captured the core insights, they evaporate almost immediately. To build a second brain, you must balance your consumption with capture interventions. For every hour of reading, spend 5 minutes capturing the 3 most resonant ideas. This simple habit transforms your relationship with media. You are no longer just a user of information. You are a producer of a knowledge base. You are building a proprietary library of insights that is unique to your life, your career, and your creative vision. The third category is resources. These are topics of ongoing interest that don't have a specific deadline or a standard to maintain, but are valuable for future use. This is your personal library of cool stuff. It might include graphic design inspiration, photography tips, great pizza recipes, or notes on stoicism. Resources are where you store the raw materials for future projects you haven't even thought of yet. This is the fertile soil of your second brain. By keeping these in their own category, you prevent your active project folders from being bogged down by interesting but not urgent information. You are building a treasure chest of ideas that you can raid whenever a new project begins. The final category is archives. This is the most underrated part of the system. An archive is for any item from the other 3 categories that is no longer active. When a project is finished, you don't delete the folder. You move it to the archive. When a resource is no longer interesting, it goes to the archive. This is critical for your psychological well-being. Knowing that you can retire information without losing it allows you to keep your active workspace lean and focused. The archive is your cold storage. It stays out of sight, so it doesn't distract you, but it is fully searchable. If you start a similar project 2 years from now, you can go to the archive and retrieve all the hard work you did previously, giving you a massive head start. The beauty of Para is its fluidity. It is not a rigid filing system. It is a production line. Information constantly moves between categories. A resource on guarding might suddenly become a project to build a raised bed. A project that gets put on hold might move to resources or archives. This movement reflects a reality of a creative life. Parta doesn't ask you to be perfectly organized. It asks you to be perfectly positioned. It ensures that your digital environment is a reflection of your current priorities. By organizing for action, you transform your second brain from a digital attic into a high-performance engine of expression. You stop being a librarian of your own life and start being director of it. To truly master Para, we must understand why the project folder is the heartbeat of the system. Most productivity systems fail because they treat tasks and information as two separate worlds. You have a to-do list in one app and your notes in another. This creates massive switching costs for the brain. You see a task like prepare presentation, but then you have to go hunting for the data, the images, and the research scattered across 3 different subject folders. By the time you find everything, your creative energy has evaporated. Para solves this by uniting the task with the tools. When you organize by project, you're creating a contextual bucket. Everything related to that goal, the emails, the research, the brainstorming, the drafts, is in one place. This allows for a warm start. Instead of the cold start of facing a blinking cursor, you simply open a project folder and start assembling. This is how the most prolific creators in the world operate. They don't wait for inspiration, they curate it. They spend their off time capturing and distilling into their project folders, so that when it's game time, the execution is effortless. You are effectively outsourcing the labor of preparation to your second brain, so your first brain can focus entirely on the art of synthesis. This project-centric approach also provides a massive boost to your motivation. When you see a marketing folder with 500 notes in it, it feels like a burden, an endless mountain of information you should read. But when you see a launch new campaign project folder with 10 carefully selected assets, it feels like a toolkit. You can see the finish line. This sense of progress is the gasoline of creativity. Para turns your information from a heavy anchor that holds you back into a powerful sail that pushes you forward. It allows you to move with speed and agility through the digital world, knowing that your system is designed to support your actions, not just store your past. In this deeper exploration of the power method, we must address the mental friction that occurs when we try to navigate a digital world built on static categories. Most organizational systems fail because they demand constant maintenance, a meticulousness that most creative professionals simply cannot sustain during a busy work week. PAR is designed to be the opposite, a low-maintenance, high-output structure that prioritizes your current self over your arc of itself. By separating your digital life into projects, areas, resources, and archives, you're not just filing data. You're creating a mental horizon that is clear, actionable, and free of the debris of the past. The genius of Para lies in its ability to handle information rot. In a traditional system, an old project folder stays in your active list forever, slowly becoming a source of guilt and distraction. In Para, the moment a project is no longer a priority, it is demoted to archives. This demotion protocol is vital for cognitive health. It allows you to say to your brain, I am not deleting this work, but I am no longer responsible for thinking about it. This simple act of moving a folder out of sight releases the open-loop anxiety that plagues most knowledge workers. You are effectively pruning your digital garden so that the most important projects have the light and space they need to grow. One of the most common points of confusion in Para is the distinction between an area and a resource. While they can sometimes look similar, the difference is defined by responsibility. An area is something you are accountable for, a standard of your life that requires ongoing attention. Your finances are an area because if you ignore them, there are real-world consequences. Professional development is an area because it is a core part of your career. In contrast, a resource is an interest, something you could use, but you aren't required to maintain. Graphic design trends might be a resource for a hobbyist, but for a professional art director, it would be an area. By distinguishing between the two, you gain a clear map of your commitments. If your areas list is too long, you are overcommit. If your resources list is too long, you are just curious. This clarity allows you to allocate your energy more effectively, ensuring that your primary brain is focused on your responsibilities, while your second brain holds on to your interests. The archive folder is often viewed as a digital graveyard, but in a high-functioning second brain, it is more like a seed bank. Every project you finish and every area you retire contains intermediate packets, summaries, templates, research, and contacts that were hard-won. When you move a completed project to the archives, you're creating a searchable library of your own expertise. Imagine you're asked to plan a corporate retreat in 2026. Instead of starting with a blank Google search, you go to your archives and pull up the 2024 Family Reunion project folder. You find a catering checklist, the venue comparison spreadsheet, and the email template you already wrote. You'll just save yourself 20 hours of work. This is the compounding interest of knowledge. PAR ensures that no effort is ever truly wasted, because the archives turn your past labor into future leverage. You are no longer just a person who works. You are a person who builds a system that works for them. Finally, the most powerful aspect of PAR is its universality. Because PAR is based on the structure of human activity rather than a specific subject, it can be applied to every digital tool you use. You can have the same 4 folders: projects, areas, resources, archives, in your Notes app, your cloud storage, your task manager, and even your desktop. This mirroring creates a seamless digital environment. When you are working on a project, you know exactly where the notes are, where the files are, and where the tasks are, regardless of which app you are in. This eliminates the navigation tax, the wasted time spent wondering, where did I put that? PAR provides a single, unified map for your entire digital life. It allows you to move with the speed of thought, confident that your system is designed to support your actions and magnify your results. You are finally in control of your ideas, rather than being buried by them. We have captured the resonant sparks of our inspiration and organized them into actionable buckets using the POWER method. But now we face the collector's fallacy in its most insidious form. It is not enough to simply possess information. To truly own an idea, you must be able to use it. If your second brain is filled with long, dense articles and sprawling transcripts, it becomes a digital burden rather than an asset. When you are in the flow of a project, you don't have time to reread a 5,000-word essay just to find the one quote that matters. This is where the third pillar of the code methodology, Distill, becomes vital. Distillation is a process of extracting the essence of an idea, refining it until it's so potent and accessible that your future self can grasp its value in a matter of seconds. The primary tool for this refinement is a technique called progressive summarization. Imagine your notes as a series of layers. Most people treat a note as a static document, but in a second brain, a note is a living organism that evolves every time you interact with it. Progressive summarization is the art of layering context over time. You don't sit down and summarize every note the moment you capture it. That would be a waste of energy. Instead, you distill opportunistically. You only invest time in refining a note when you are actually using it for a project. This ensures that you are only spending your precious creative energy on the information that has already proven its value. The first layer is the raw material you captured in Chapter 2. This might be a full article, a transcript of a podcast, or a set of meeting notes. At this stage, the note is unrefined, or it contains value, but it is buried under a mountain of fluff and filler. Your job in the first layer is simply to ensure the source is clear and the hook, why you saved it, is present. You aren't doing any heavy lifting yet. You are simply securing the asset in your system. The next time you encounter that note, perhaps because you are searching for research on a specific topic, you move to layer 2. As you read through the raw text, you simply bold the sentences or phrases that stand out as particularly insightful. You aren't deleting anything. You are just turning up the volume on the most important parts. This allows your eye to skip over the secondary details and land directly on the core arguments. This layer alone reduces the search cost of the note by nearly 80%, allowing you to scan a long document in a fraction of the time. If a note continues to be useful, you move to layer 3. You look only at the bolded sections and apply a digital highlighter to the very best parts of those sections. This is a distillation of the distillation. You are looking for the atomic units of the idea, the single sentence or the perfect turn of phrase that captures the entire message. At this stage, you're creating a scannable version of the note. Your future self can now glance at the document and, within 5 seconds, understand exactly why this note is important and how it can be used. The final layer, reserved only for your most valuable Holy Grail notes, is the executive summary. You write a brief paragraph at the very top of the note, in your own words, explaining the core concept. By the time you reach this layer, you have fully internalized the information. You aren't just reading someone else's thoughts anymore. You're processing through your own unique perspective. This is a moment where information officially becomes knowledge. This summary is the ultimate gift to your future self, providing instant access to complex wisdom without the need for any reprocessing. The beauty of progressive summarization is that it is self-correcting. You don't have to worry about over-summarizing a note that isn't useful because you'll never reach layer 3 or 4 for that note. Conversely, your most important ideas will naturally rise to the top, becoming more refined and accessible every time you use them. This is how you build a high-yield second brain. You are transforming your digital archive from a dusty warehouse of raw data into a vibrant laboratory of refined insights. You are ensuring that every time you touch a note, you leave it better than you found it, building a compound interest of wisdom that will serve you for the rest of your life. The final layer of progressive summarization, the executive summary, is where the most profound transformation occurs. When you reach the point of writing a summary in your own words, you are no longer a passive observer of information. You are an active participant in the creation of knowledge. This is the alchemical moment. By forcing yourself to explain a concept simply, you are testing your own understanding. As the saying goes, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. The summary is a proof of your mastery. This layer is especially critical for your future self, who may be working under extreme pressure. Imagine you are in the middle of a high-stakes meeting or a tight deadline. You need a specific insight from a book you read 3 years ago. If you open a note and find 5 pages of raw text, you will likely close it in frustration. But if you find a 3-sentence executive summary at the top, you can use that insight immediately. This is what we call compressing the time to value. You have done the hard work of thinking in the past, so that you can reap the rewards in the present. You are building a system that allows you to be smarter than you actually are by providing instant access to your best previous thoughts. Distillation also helps you avoid the robotic trap of digital organization. Many people treat their notes like data entries in spreadsheet, cold, clinical, and devoid of personality. But a second brain should be a reflection of you. When you bold, highlight, and summarize, you're adding your own flavor to the information. You are deciding what matters to you. This personal touch is what makes the information stick. It turned a generic piece of research into a proprietary asset that only you possess. By distilling your notes, you are also practicing intellectual humility. You are acknowledging that you cannot remember everything, and that your first impression of an idea might not be the most valuable one. You are allowing the idea to mature over time, refining it through multiple encounters. This leads to a deeper, more nuanced understanding of complex topics. You aren't just collecting ideas, you are breeding them. You are creating a digital environment where the best ideas can cross-pollinate and evolve into something entirely new. This is a foundation of true creativity and the ultimate goal of the second brain. I end this final deep dive into the distillation process. We must address the ultimate goal of refining our digital assets, the ability to retrieve the DNA of an idea instantly. If the previous layers were about identifying the best parts, this final stage is about signal amplification. When you are in a high-pressure environment, a boardroom, a creative deadline, or a critical negotiation, your second brain must function as a high-speed search engine for your own wisdom. Distillation ensures that when you search your system, you don't just find information, you find answers. The most important metric for a well-distilled note is the future self-empathy test. When you are bouldering or highlighting a note, you must imagine yourself 6 months from now. That version of you is busy, tired, and have forgotten the context of the specific research. Ask yourself, if I only had 30 seconds to look at this note, would I understand its value? This perspective shift is what separates a professional knowledge worker from a digital hoarder. You aren't distilling for your current self. You are distilling for a version of yourself that is under fire. Be wary applying this empathy. You realize that the white space in a note is just as important as a text. A note that is wall-to-wall text is a psychological barrier. A note that is beautifully layered with bolding and summaries is an invitation. This aesthetic quality of distillation actually lowers the cognitive friction of starting work. When your environment is filled with high-yield, easily digestible intermediate packets, your brain is more likely to enter a state of flow because the activation energy required to begin is so low. While distillation is powerful, we must also avoid the trap of over-distillation. There's a point of diminishing returns where you spend so much time refining a note that you lose a flavor and the evidence that made the idea credible in the first place. You must leave enough meat on the bone so that you can verify your own thinking later. This is why progressive summarization is so effective. It preserves the original source text at the bottom while layering the insights on top. When faced with a complex creative challenge, use the island of certainty technique. Start by pulling all the intermediate packages you already have into a new document. These are your islands, the things you know for sure, the quotes you love, and the data you've already verified. Suddenly, the blank page is no longer blank. It has several solid points of reference. Your job then becomes simply to build the bridges between these islands. This modular approach to expression reduces cognitive load and allows you to move with much higher velocity. You aren't struggling to create. You are managing a flow of existing assets. A second brain also allows you to develop a more authentic and consistent voice. Because you are drawing from a library of things that resonated with you personally, your output naturally reflects your true interests and values. You aren't just parroting the latest trends. You are building on a foundation of ideas that you have lived with and refined over time. This gives your work a sense of depth and authority that is rare in the fast content culture today. Your second brain acts as the memory of your soul, ensuring that your public expression is a true reflection of your private growth. As we conclude this 18,000-word journey, remember that the goal of building a second brain is not to become a better note-taker. The goal is to become a more effective human being. By offloading mechanical tasks of remembering to your digital tools, you are reclaiming your mental space for the things that matter, your relationships, your health, and your unique contribution to the world. You have built the system. You have mastered the methodology. Now go out and express. The world is waiting for your best ideas. As we move toward the final stages of establishing your second brain, we must address the reality of entropy. Any system, no matter how perfectly designed, will eventually collapse into chaos if it is not maintained. In the digital world, this manifests as digital clutter, the slow accumulation of unorganized notes, duplicate files, and abandoned projects that eventually make a system feel heavy and uninviting. To prevent your second brain from becoming a source of stress, you must transition from a builder to a steward. This chapter is about creating a sustainable, low-friction maintenance routine that ensures your digital sanctuary remains a place of clarity and inspiration for years to come. The first rule of long-term maintenance is to organize by feel, not by rule. Most people fail because they try to be perfect. They set aside hours every Sunday to clean up their notes, a task that quickly becomes a chore and is eventually abandoned. In a high-functioning second brain, organization happens opportunistically. You don't clean your system because it's Sunday. You clean a specific folder because you are currently working in it. This is a campsite rule. Always leave a note or a folder in better shape than you found it. If you open a project folder and see a note that belongs in the archives, move it now. If you see a raw capture that needs a bolded line, do it now. This continuous, small-scale maintenance prevents the need for massive, overwhelming cleanup sessions. The second pillar of maintenance is the weekly review, but with a twist. Most productivity gurus suggest a weekly review to plan your tasks. In the second brain philosophy, the weekly review is about clearing the decks. It is a 10-minute process of looking at your inbox or cap your folder and deciding where things go. Does this note go into an active project? Does it support an area of responsibility? Is it a resource for later? Or should it be deleted? The goal is to get your capture area back to zero so that you start every week with a clean mental slate. This simple habit closes the open loops in your mind, reinforcing the trust you have in your system. If you don't trust that you'll process your capture folder, your brain will start trying to remember the information again, and you'll find yourself back in a state of cognitive overload. The third aspect of long-term evolution is migration. As your life and career change, your second brain must change with them. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago, and your system should reflect that. This means being ruthless with your areas and resources. If you were interested in photography 3 years ago but haven't picked up a camera in 18 months, that resource should be moved to the archives. This is not an admission of failure. It is an act of digital pruning. By removing the things you are no longer interested in, You make room for the things you are currently passionate about. This keeps your second brain fresh and aligned with your current identity. Finally, we must consider the tool agnosticism of a mature system. A second brain is a methodology, not a specific piece of software. Over the next decade, the apps you use will inevitably change. Companies will go out of business, new technologies like AI will emerge, and your preferences will shift. A well-maintained system is portable. By using the power structure and clear, descriptive titles, you ensure that you can move your entire knowledge base from one app to another with minimal effort. You are not locked in to a vendor. You are the owner of your intellectual property. This long-term perspective allows you to invest deeply in your system, knowing that the work you do today will remain accessible and valuable for the rest of your life. As your second brain grows to hold decades of your thoughts, experiences, and creative output, it becomes more than a productivity tool. It becomes a digital legacy. This raises important questions about privacy and security. Your second brain contains your most vulnerable ideas, your private reflections, and your proprietary business strategies. Stewardship means taking the time to ensure your data is encrypted, backed up in multiple locations, and accessible only to you. This is an insurance policy for your mind. You wouldn't leave your physical journals on a park bench. You must treat your digital notes with the same level of respect. Furthermore, consider the intergenerational value of your system. In previous centuries, families passed down physical commonplace books and journals that provided a window into minds of their ancestors. Your second brain is the modern equivalent. By maintaining it well, you are creating a gift for your future self and potentially for those who come after you. You are documenting your growth, your struggles, and your triumphs. This sense of meaning-making is the ultimate goal of personal knowledge management. It turns a chaotic flow of information into a coherent narrative of a life well lived. The final lesson of maintenance is knowing when to turn the system off. The goal of a second brain is to support your first brain, not to replace it. There are times when you need to put the phone down, close the laptop, and simply be. The system is there to catch your ideas so that you can be fully present in the unrecorded moments of life. The conversations with loved ones, the quiet walks in nature, the spontaneous burst of joy. A perfect system is one that allows you to forget exists. It is a silent, reliable foundation that gives you the freedom to live with your whole heart. You have organized your life and ideas. Now, go live them. In this final deep dive expansion of the intersection between the second brain and artificial intelligence, we must address the shift from static storage to active intelligence. For years, a second brain was essentially a sophisticated digital filing cabinet. You did the work of capturing, you did the work of organizing, and you did the work of retrieving. But as we move into the late 2020s, the second brain is becoming an active agent. By feeding your curated Distill notes into personalized AI models, you are effectively giving the AI a personality and a context that is uniquely yours. The AI no longer just knows general facts about the world. It knows your facts, your preferences, and your specific way of connecting ideas. This creates a powerful, augmented intelligence loop. When you face a creative block, you're no longer limited to your own immediate recall. You can query your life's work. You can ask, how did I solve a similar problem in that project from 3 years ago? And the AI can synthesize a solution based on your archived intermediate packets. This is the ultimate warm start. The AI acts as a bridge between your past self and your future self, ensuring that no insight is ever truly lost to friction of time. You are essentially building a digital version of your own wisdom, a legacy that can be queried and built upon long after the original spark of inspiration has faded. One of the greatest barriers to maintaining a second brain has always been an organizational tax, the time spent filing, tagging, and moving notes into PAR folders. AI is rapidly eliminating this tax. Modern tools can now look at a raw capture and automatically suggest the most relevant project or area based on your existing structure. They can detect the resonance of a note and automatically highlight key phrases, performing a first pass of progressive summarization for you. This allows you to spend 100% of your time in the express phase. You move from being a librarian who has to shelve the books to the director who simply decides which books are worth reading. However, this automation brings a new responsibility, algorithmic curation. As the system becomes more automated, the human role shifts toward steering the ship. You must ensure that the AI is learning from your highest quality inputs, not just your casual browsing. This is where the resonance test from Chapter 2 becomes even more critical. Your second brain is a training data for your personal AI. If you capture junk, the AI will provide junk insights. If you capture distilled wisdom, the AI will provide a competitive advantage that no generic model can match. You are the architect of the data that will define your future performance. As our second brains become more intelligent, the question of data sovereignty becomes paramount. We are moving toward a world of local AI, models that run directly on your own hardware rather than the cloud. This ensures that your most private thoughts, your proprietary business strategies, and your raw, unrefined ideas never leave your physical control. This shadow second brain is a safe space for radical creativity, a place where you can experiment with bad ideas until they become great ones without the fear of surveillance or data leaks. The future of personal knowledge management is one of profound empowerment. We are building systems that don't just help us work faster, but help us think deeper. We are overcoming the biological limits of memory and the digital limits of information overload. By combining the rigorous structure of code and PAR methodologies with the generative power of AI, you're creating a digital sanctuary that is as dynamic and resilient as a human spirit itself. You have organized your life and ideas. Now, you have the ultimate partner to help you execute them at a scale previously unimaginable. In this extensive expansion of our final chapter, we must consider the second brain as an evolving digital oracle. In the early stages of personal knowledge management, your digital system was a one-way street. You put information in, and you hope to find it later. However, with the integration of advanced linguistic models, the relationship becomes a dialogue. Your second brain can now act as a mirror of the mind, reflecting your own ideas back to you in ways you hadn't considered. This is a transition from information management to knowledge partnership. By querying your system, you are essentially interviewing your past self, allowing your previous insights to challenge and refine your current assumptions. One of the most revolutionary aspects of this new era is automatic cross-pollination. In a manual system, the resources folder often becomes a graveyard for interesting but idle information. You might have a note on architectural design and another on psychological behavioral patterns. But unless you happen to open both folders on the same day, you may never see the connection. AI changes this by operating on a vector space, where ideas are mapped by meaning, not just by keywords. Your second brain can now proactively suggest. This new note on urban planning reminds you that article you saved 2 years ago about the dopamine loops of digital notifications. This is how the system moves from being a storage unit to being a creative catalyst, facilitating a kind of interdisciplinary thinking that is a hallmark of modern innovation. For many, the hardest part maintaining a second brain is the cognitive labor of the PAR method. Moving folders and archiving finished projects can feel like administrative drudgery that pulls you away from the real work. However, we are entering the age of the executive function assistant. Modern tools can now monitor your projects and areas and nudge you when a system is becoming stagnant. If a project folder hasn't been touched in 3 months, the system can ask, should this be moved to archives? If you capture a note that clearly matches a current active goal, the system can automatically place it in the correct project bucket. This automation allows for a hands-free second brain. By reducing the friction of organization, you ensure that the system remains healthy even during your busiest seasons. You no longer have to be a librarian to reap the benefits of a library. You simply act as a creative director, providing a high-level intent while the system manages the low-level logistics. This liberation of mental energy is the true goal of the digital sanctuary. It allows you to spend your limited biological bandwidth on the tasks that require human empathy, ethical judgment, and complex intuition, the things that no machine can replicate. As we close this 21,000-word deep dive into the world of Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain, we must recognize that this is not just a productivity hack. It is a fundamental evolution in how humans interact with the world of ideas. You are no longer limited by the fading ink of your biological memory or the noise of a cluttered digital life. You have built a system that is resilient, searchable, and capable of compounding your wisdom over a lifetime. The second brain is your intellectual compound interest. Every note you capture today is an investment that will pay dividends 10 years from now. You have the tools, you have the methodology, and now you have the vision to turn the digital deluge into a fountain of perpetual creativity. You have organized your life and your ideas. Now, go out and use that clarity to build a world that reflects your highest aspirations. The future is no longer something that happens to you. It is something you design, one captured idea at a time. The final threshold of building a second brain is a transition from a system you use to an environment you inhabit. After mastering the code methodology and the para-organizational structure, the ultimate goal is to reach a state of creative flow where the boundary between your first brain and your second brain begins to dissolve. This chapter focuses on the daily habits, the small win routines, and the psychological shifts necessary to make your digital system a seamless extension of your consciousness. It is about moving beyond the mechanics of note-taking and into the art of effortless production, where your digital assets act as a constant, supportive wind at your back. One of the most powerful habits for maintaining this flow is the check-in ritual. Most people fail because they treat their second brain as a destination they visit only when they are organized. In reality, the system is most valuable when you are in the middle of a mess. By starting every work session with a 2-minute scan of your active project folders, you prime your brain with the intermediate packets you've already created. This ritual eliminates the starting friction that leads to procrastination. You aren't looking for things to do. You are looking for things you've already started. This shift in perspective from, I have to do this, to, I get to continue this. This is the secret to sustain creative momentum. To maintain a second brain that inspires rather than overwhelms, you must adopt the philosophy of the digital mise en place. In the culinary world, mise en place refers to the practice of gathering and preparing all ingredients before a single flame is lit. In your digital life, this means ensuring that your capture inbox is cleared and your archives are up to date. A cluttered system creates visual noise that competes for your attention. By performing small, low-stakes maintenance tasks during your low-energy periods, such as during a commute or while waiting for a meeting, you ensure that your high-energy periods are reserved exclusively for express phase. Your second brain becomes a sanctuary of focus, a place where the only things visible are the things that matter right now. This chapter also explores a concept of systemic trust. If you don't believe your second brain will show you the right information at the right time, you will continue to carry the burden of remembering in your biological mind. Building this trust takes time and consistent wins. Every time you search your system and find exactly what you need, your brain receives a signal that is safe to let go. Over months and years, this trust matures into a profound sense of information security. You no longer panic when you encounter a complex problem because you know you have a decade of distilled wisdom at your fingertips. You are no longer working alone. You are working with the best version of every person you have ever been. As we reach the conclusion of this 24,000-word journey, we must recognize that the second brain is not a destination, but a way of being. It is a realization that your life is not a series of disconnected events, but a continuous process of growth and contribution. By organizing your life and ideas, you are not just becoming more productive, you are becoming more coherent. Your past, present, and future selves are finally in dialogue. You have built the infrastructure for a life of impact. Now, the only thing left to do is to step into that infrastructure and begin. The world is waiting for the unique synthesis of ideas that only you, supported by your second brain, can provide. A major hurdle to maintaining flow is a perfectionist trap. The urge to spend more time organizing your system than using it. To master the flow of second brain, you must adopt a philosophy of just enough organization. Your system should be as organized as necessary to support your current work, and no more. If you spend 3 hours tagging every note you've ever taken, you aren't being productive. You're engaging in productive procrastination. The second brain is designed to be a high-yield system. You focus your organizational energy on the 20% of your notes that will provide 80% of your future value. This means being ruthless with your attention. If a note doesn't resonate or support a current project, it doesn't deserve your time. By letting go of the need for a perfect order, you free up your biological brain to engage in a high-level synthesis that leads to breakthroughs. You are the conductor, the orchestra, not the person who dusts the seats. Trust that your power structure and your search tools are strong enough to find what you need, allowing you to stay focused on the melody of your current creation. As we conclude this script, we must look at the social engagement of your second brain. While personal knowledge management starts as a private practice, its ultimate expression is often collaborative. When you have a second brain that is organized and distilled, you become a much more valuable collaborator. You can provide instant research, share high-quality summaries, and pull up previous solutions in the middle of a team meeting. You move from being a silo of information to being a hub of wisdom. This collaborative flow creates a collective second brain. When you share your intermediate packets with others, you are contributing to the human herd's knowledge base. You receive feedback that further refines your own thinking, which you then capture back into your system. This is the ultimate next step. By organizing your life and ideas, you haven't just improved your own productivity. You have increased your capacity to serve others. You have built a digital sanctuary that not only protects your own creativity, but also fuels the creativity of those around you. The final stage of flow is reaching what could be called digital mastery. This is the point where the tool becomes invisible. You no longer think about capture or organize as discrete steps. They happen as naturally as breathing. When you hear a compelling idea, your hand reaches for your capture tool without a second thought. When you start a new project, your fingers navigate to the para structure automatically. You have moved through the 4 stages of competence, from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence, and finally to unconscious competence. In this state of mastery, you are no longer managing a system. You are simply living your life with a supercharged memory. You have more bandwidth for deep conversations, more presence for your loved ones, and more boldness in your creative pursuits. The anxiety of information overload has been replaced by the exhilaration of information opportunity. You know that whatever challenges the future holds, you have a recorded wisdom of your past self to help you navigate it. You have built a second brain, not just to work better, but to live better. You have now mastered the methodology of the second brain. You have moved from the information overload of the modern world into a state of information mastery. You have learned to capture what resonates, organize for action, distill the essence, and express with impact. You have built a system that is resilient, portable, and capable of compounding your wisdom over a lifetime. This journey has been about more than just apps and folders. It has been about reclaiming your humanity in a digital age. It has been about moving from a state of reactive consumption to a state of intentional creation. You are no longer just a person with a computer. You are a person with an extended mind. The score of your life is no longer kept in the stress of your body, but in the vibrancy of your ideas. You are home in your own mind, and the world is waiting for what you will create next. As we reach the conclusion of this extensive exploration into building a second brain, we must look beyond the apps, the folders, and the productivity hacks to confront the ultimate purpose of this journey. We are not just trying to be more efficient workers or better note-takers. We are engaged in a profound act of cognitive evolution. In an era where information is expanding at an exponential rate, our biological brains are no longer sufficient to navigate the complexity of the modern world on their own. The second brain is our response to this challenge, a digital sanctuary that allows us to move from the frantic information overload of the present into a state of knowledge mastery. This final section is about the long-term integration of these principles and the legacy of life lived with an organized mind. The transition from knowledge to wisdom is the final stage of the methodology. Knowledge is the possession of information. Wisdom is the ability to apply that information with judgment, ethics, and long-term perspective. Your second brain acts as the fertile soil for this wisdom. By capturing only what resonates and distilling it over years, you're creating a high-concentration reservoir of truth when you face a difficult decision or a complex creative challenge. You aren't just relying on your immediate, often biased, emotional reaction. You are drawing upon the collective insights of every version of yourself that has ever learned something valuable. This temporal perspective is the essence of wisdom. It allows you to see patterns that others miss, and act with a level of clarity that is rare in our distracted age. At its highest level, a second brain becomes a tool for self-actualization. We often think of productivity as doing more, but true productivity is doing what matters. The PAR method and the code framework are designed to strip away the busy work of the information age so that you can focus on your unique contribution to the world. When you no longer have to worry about where your files are or how you will remember an idea, you are free to explore the boundaries of your own potential. You can take on more ambitious projects, engage in deeper learning, and contribute more meaningfully to your community. This system also serves as a profound defense against the attention economy. We live in a world where billion-dollar algorithms are designed to hijack our focus and dictate our interests. A second brain is your intellectual sovereign territory. It is the one place in the digital world where you decide what is important. By curating your own knowledge, you are asserting your independence from the feed. You are building a world based on your own values, your own curiosities, and your own goals. This intellectual autonomy is the prerequisite for meaningful and creative life. It allows you to move from being a user of technology to being a master of it. The most incredible aspect of a second brain is its compounding nature. In the first few months, the system may feel like extra work, but as the years go by, the value of every note you have taken begins to multiply. You start to see connections between a book you read in 2024 and a project you are starting in 2028. You find that the intermediate packets you built 5 years ago are the perfect foundation for a new business venture today. You're no longer starting over. Every time you face a new challenge, you are building on a foundation that grows stronger every single day. This compounding effect transforms your career from a series of disjointed jobs into a continuous narrative of growth. You are building a proprietary asset, a library of insights and solutions that no one else possesses. This asset makes you more valuable, more resilient, and more creative. It is your competitive advantage in an increasingly automated world. While AI can process general information faster than any human, it cannot replicate the unique resonance of your lived experience and specific ways you have synthesized your knowledge. Your second brain is a digital twin of your expertise and becomes more powerful the longer you maintain it. The ultimate goal of all these methodologies, code, para, and digressive summarization, is to reach a state of creative flow. This is a state where the tools disappear, the friction of the digital world evaporates, and you are fully immersed in the joy of creation. When your second brain is working perfectly, it feels like an extension of your own body. You think an idea and it is captured. You need a fact, and it is there. You want to create, and the assets are ready. This flow is not a lucky accident. It is a result of intentional design. You've built the infrastructure. You have mastered the habits. You have settled the score between your first brain and the information age. You are now free to do the work you were meant to do, whether that is writing a masterpiece, building a company, raising a family, or simply living a life of quiet curiosity. Your second brain is the silent partner that makes it all possible. You have organized your life and your ideas. Now, go out and live a life that matters. We have covered a vast landscape in this 21,000+ word journey. From the initial crisis of information overload to the cutting edge of AI-enhanced knowledge management, the roadmap remains the same. Capture. Only say what resonates with your heart and mind. Organize. Group your information by actionability using the PAR method. Distill. Layer your notes so that your future self can find the essence instantly. Express. Turn your digital assets into tangible contributions for the world. By following this path, you transform your relationship with the digital world. You move from stress to serenity, from distraction to focus, and from consumption to creation. Your second brain is more than a system. It is a testament to your belief that your ideas are worth saving and your voice is worth hearing. This concludes a masterclass on building a second brain. Your system is ready. Your mind is clear. The future is yours to write. As we conclude this masterclass, we must look at the long-term biological and economic implications of your system. In your 20s and 30s, your brain is a sponge capable of rapid learning and neuroplasticity. But as we age, our fluid intelligence, the ability to solve new problems and process information quickly, naturally begins to decline. However, our crystallized intelligence, the wealth of knowledge and experience we've accumulated, continues to grow. A second brain is a bridge between these two stages of life. It allows you to store the rapid-fire insights of your youth so that they are available to the seasoned judgment of your maturity. You are essentially building a wisdom bank that you can draw from for the rest of your life. The concept of intellectual compound interest is the single most important reason to maintain your system over decades. In the first year, your second brain is just a collection of notes. By year 5, it is a comprehensive library. By year 20, it is a proprietary asset that no one else in the world possesses. Every time you cross-link an old idea with a new one, the value of both ideas increases. This is a network effect applied to your own mind. You aren't just getting smarter. You are becoming deeper. You are building a system that allows you to see the long-term trends, the historical echo, and the fundamental truth that those who live in the instant world of the feed will inevitably miss. We must also confront the reality of the digital landscape we inhabit. We are living through an era of unprecedented cognitive warfare. Billion-dollar corporations use sophisticated algorithms to curate what you see, what you think, and what you care about. If you do not have a system for curating your own information, you are effectively a serf in someone else's digital kingdom. You are being fed a diet of outrage, distraction, and superficiality. Building a second brain is an act of digital sovereignty. It is a declaration that you are the architect of your own mind. By choosing what to capture and what to distill, you are reclaiming your attention. You are deciding which voices are worth listening to and which ideas are worth preserving. This intellectual independence is a foundation of true creativity. It allows you to develop a contrarian perspective, to see what others don't see because you're looking at a different set of data. In an automated world, this unique human perspective is the only thing that cannot be commodified. Finally, we must consider the generational impact of your second brain. We often think of our digital files as temporary, but they are the modern equivalent to the journals, letters, and commonplace books of the past. Your second brain is a record of your intellectual struggle, your creative triumphs, and your personal evolution. By maintaining it with care, you are creating a gift for those who come after you. Imagine being able to give your children or your ment access to your second brain, not just a list of facts, but a map of how you thought, what you valued, and how you solved the problems of your time. This is the ultimate form of mentorship. It allows your wisdom to scale beyond your physical presence. You are contributing to the collective second brain of humanity, ensuring that the lessons you learn are not lost in the fog of history. You have moved from organizing your life to authoring your legacy.